And recording is happening here. Okay. Click. Alright, guys, what's going on? I'm Dan, and this is For Your Mental Health. So, my last episode was What is Anxiety? So, I was glad to get that video done, get the first video out there for this series, and, just explain, what anxiety is, what my own anxiety is about, and, kind of share it with you guys. So, now that I've got the first one out of the way, it's nice to be able to go to the next episode here. And this one has quite the bit of significance to me and what I've dealt with in my life of late. And this episode is What is Depression? I'll be taking my information from mentalhealth.org.uk as well as verywellmind.com. So I'll link those two below so you can check out those different websites. But the way mentalhealth.org.uk defines depression is a common mental health problem that causes people to experience low mood, loss of interest or pleasure, feelings of guilt or low self-worth, disturbed sleep or appetite, low energy, and poor concentration. So that is what depression is according to this definition. And so I've definitely dealt with depression a lot recently in my life, most notably because of the loss of one of my heroes, Chester Bennington, who took his own life back in July 2017, which caused me to be very devastated by that news and get very depressed. And I wasn't really sure exactly how to handle those feelings initially. And so that's why I started the hashtag Thank You Chester Project, which you'll see more videos of that coming soon. But 300 million people around the world have depression according to the World Health Organization. 16.2 million adults in the United States, equaling about 6.7% of all adults in the country, have experienced a major depressive episode in the past year. Let's see, 10.3 million U.S. adults have experienced an episode that resulted in severe impairment in the past year. Nearly 50% of all people diagnosed with depression are also diagnosed with an anxiety disorder. Good to know. And it's estimated that 15% of the adult population will experience depression at some point in their lifetime. So that doesn't seem like that much, 15%, compared to the rest of the world, but that's a whole lot of people. There's a lot of people that deal with depression in the world. I've come to realize it more that I've experienced it myself. My mom's gone through depression, and that had a significant impact on me as well. So I've seen it firsthand. I've experienced it firsthand, and it's nothing to play around with. Those dark thoughts that enter your mind can be very toxic. And so once again, it's my mission in this series to alleviate the sort of stigma that may still find itself around the subject of mental health issues, anxiety, depression, suicidal thoughts, things like that. So hopefully, once again, these videos can help make a difference, which would be great. So let's talk about the demographics of people with depression. And depression can begin at any age, and it can affect people of all races and across all socioeconomic statuses. So here's some of the statistics of the demographics of people with depression. I found this on one of the websites that I linked below, so I thought it was quite interesting and worth sharing. So the median age of depression onset is 32 and a half years old. So I am 32 and about 4 months years old. So I'm right there. I'm right there in the thick of it. Which was kind of a shock, I guess, to know that, I'm right there in the median age of people that deal with this. And so, I joined so many other people around this age that deal with depression, and, it's just kind of incredible to me to think that there are so many people, of my age that deal with the same things I do, that I'm not alone in the world when it comes to dealing with this, with this disease. So that was definitely a very interesting statistic to read. The prevalence of adults with a major depressive episode is highest among individuals between 18 and 25. So that's people that are a bit younger than me that have a major depressive episode between 18 and 25. I guess that makes sense. That's a very volatile point in a person's life. They're getting out of high school, getting into college, entering the working world. It's a lot of change, a lot of turmoil that goes through a person's life when they are around that age. So I'm not surprised that is the case. 10.5% of adults who report 2 or more races have experienced a major depressive episode in the past year. 8.5% of women have depression, and 4.8% of men have depression. So, according to that statistic, it's almost double the amount of women compared to men that have depression. Why that is, I'm not entirely sure. They don't really explain why that is specifically, but it certainly is interesting to note the major difference between the amount of men that have depression and women that have depression. So it's quite a bit more women, which is interesting as well. As far as the symptoms of depression go, they include tiredness and loss of energy, as well as sadness that doesn't go away, the loss of self-confidence and self-esteem, difficulty concentrating, not being able to enjoy things that are usually pleasurable or interesting, feeling anxious all the time, avoiding other people, sometimes even your close friends, feelings of helplessness and hopelessness, sleeping problems, so difficulties in getting off to sleep or waking up much earlier than usual, very strong feelings of guilt or worthlessness, finding it hard to function at a work/college/school, loss of appetite, loss of sex drive and or sexual problems, physical aches and pains, thinking about suicide and death, and last is self-harm. So yeah, that's a lot of symptoms. It's a long list, of course, and each of those things certainly can take a toll on a person, if they never are able to deal with it in a healthy way. As far as my experiences with depression go, tiredness and loss of energy, I've always been a very energetic person, so I don't know if that's really been one of the cases that I've had to deal with. Tiredness, I sleep a lot. I've always been pretty good about sleeping, so that one, that one probably hasn't affected me as much. Sadness that doesn't go away, losing Chester Bennington, losing someone that I really looked up to, was really hard. And I was sad, how else is there to describe it? You lose someone that you love, and it stays with you for a long time. And so I definitely had to deal with that. Loss of self-confidence and self-esteem. I suppose there was something to be said for that. I feel like I've grown into myself more the past, 5 to 10 years, and really found my confidence in trying to do things like this, like speak in front of a camera, like go out and dress in different costumes at conventions and things. That takes confidence to do that. And so, I don't know if that stuff necessarily went away when I was feeling the most depressed, but, I think it certainly was lessened a bit, because when you're depressed, when you're really feeling low, it's hard to sometimes find the words to really express it to other people, to be confident enough to do that. And self-esteem, the self-worth of a person. I don't know. I guess in the darkest moments, I did feel like my worth, was not very valuable. Unfortunately, that maybe people didn't care about me, and whatever happened, and it didn't matter. But luckily, I was able to figure things out, and get to know my close friends even better, and understand that people do care about me, and that I am worth something. So that takes some time to get there. Difficulty concentrating. If you once again lose someone you love, and you're trying to go to work every day, you're trying to make a living, you need money to support yourself, and it can be hard to concentrate on the finer details of those things, because in the back of your head you're still depressed, you're still thinking about your hero that has taken his life. So I've definitely dealt with that here at the escape room. Each day keeps coming and coming, so you have to be ready for different groups, and you have to be able to do your job. And so concentrating on what's happening here versus what's in your mind can be very difficult, that's for sure. So I definitely experienced that. Not being able to enjoy things that are usually pleasurable or interesting. I really couldn't listen to Linkin Park songs, I think initially, because it reminded me of Chester, and hearing his voice was painful because I knew he was gone. So those things I always enjoyed for the longest time, and for the first time it was definitely a totally different experience listening to those songs and realizing that he would never be able to sing them live again. Yeah, that certainly had an effect on me as well. Feeling anxious all the time. Somewhat, I suppose. I mean, I don't consider myself that anxious of a person normally, but there have been instances where I have felt anxious, and maybe it has affected me in some way. Like going out in the public places and having to go shopping, and having to deal with people or people here on a regular basis. Having to talk to them and have some type of interaction. Can make you feel a little anxious. That's the kind of social anxiety that I talked about in the first episode. So I definitely felt maybe a bit more anxious when I was depressed, for sure. And that kind of goes along with the next one, avoiding other people, sometimes even your close friends. And, I think I did kind of try to do that. When I was turning 31, I was not really that excited about my birthday. Like, I'm usually pretty excited about it, just because I get to see my friends and stuff. But this time, I wasn't really feeling it. I think it was because I was, in a tumultuous state of being, and I didn't really want to show that to my friends. I want to be the happy-go-lucky kind of person that I've always been. But when you are feeling depressed and feeling really down about things, it's not something you necessarily want to show the world, right? I mean, that makes a lot of sense. You feel like you have to hide it. You feel like you kind of have to hide what's going on inside of you because you're ashamed of it. You don't want people to see the difference in you from what you were before to what you are now. But I think you come to realize that your close friends, they're going to be there for you no matter if you're feeling depressed, if you're feeling anxious, if you're the same person you were in high school, if you're dealing with issues that maybe they've dealt with before in their own life. Who knows? So you come to rely on those people, and you come to really appreciate that they're there. So I definitely experienced that a lot, during my most depressed state. Sleeping problems, difficulties in getting off to sleep or waking up much earlier than usual. Once again, I never really had a lot of problems with sleeping, so that's not something that really affected me that much. I never really had a problem going to sleep. I still have times where I'm just laying in bed, and there's things just kind of ruminating in the mind about what has happened in the past day, the past month, the past year, and what my future holds. All these sorts of questions going on, and I think a lot of us deal with that. But I definitely enjoy sleep a lot. Sleep's very nice. I don't think it's ever really changed. But I know a lot of people that have dealt with that. Like my mother, for instance, when she was deep in her own depression, she would be up many hours of the night walking back and forth, and just ruminating in her own mind about things going on, and that was really hard to watch, for sure. So I definitely have seen that, and it's something that can take a very strong hold of someone. So let's see, very strong feelings of guilt or worthlessness. Yeah, once again, I did at points feel like what's the point of going on? I felt like it was unworthy of having life, having this escape room, having this job, having good friends. I at times I felt like it wasn't something that I had done enough to really say that I had earned during my depression, I suppose. Yeah. I mean, you feel that kind of stuff. The more I got through each day, the more I realized that these things were accumulation of decisions that I've made to get to this point. I was able to sort of better assess the situation and be like, wait a minute, maybe I'm not as worthless as I think I am, and I think I'm actually able to appreciate what I have and know that I earned these things, and these are products of my successes, and so you kind of have to pat yourself on the back a little bit. It's like, dude, it's all right, you're here, you've got these things because of what you can provide, to the rest of society. So, enjoy that, and that makes me happy to think about that. So, that's kind of where I am right now. I really appreciate the things that I have. Finding it hard to function at work / college / school. I've done the best I've done the best that I could, trying to do my job right. So if you're working a job that also deals with people and you're feeling very depressed, it can be very difficult to be able to put on a face and be like, hey, everything's fine, even though everything's not really fine. But you can't, obviously you can't really say that. It's not a very practical thing to do. I know when my mom dealt with depression, she would call into work a lot and say she didn't feel good, and she did it so much that eventually they let her go. And so, obviously, there's businesses to run. If you can't go and do something, someone else will come and do it instead and get paid for it, and you won't. So, it's that kind of world. And so, because of the commercial world that we live in, a lot of times mental health issues get swept under the rug and are treated as if they really don't matter compared to like physical injury. It's like on a different playing field of sorts, and that's a real big issue. That employers maybe don't see mental health issues as important as other things that will happen to a person. So I definitely think that needs to be worked on across all channels of the working world, for sure. Let's see, loss of appetite. So yeah, I definitely have experienced that many times, being depressed for different reasons, not really wanting to eat anything because I think I was trying to sort of justify it in my head. It's like, well, if I eat more, that means I'm going to have to live more of this life that I don't like, because I'm depressed and this existence is terrible, and if I eat more, it's going to prolong the pain, right? And so I think that's part of it, just thinking that the more you eat, the more you have to suffer. Because you're going to survive longer. It's a scary thing because you try to starve yourself or something. That's something that can definitely have a physical effect on you. I really enjoy eating food, especially now that I'm working out more. I'm intaking a bunch of calories, and so to be depressed and not want to eat, is something I don't really like to be doing. But it has happened. It's important to recognize that. If you're not happy with yourself, you certainly, are more likely to be affected by this, and I certainly have been as well. Loss of sex drive and sexual problems. That one I don't know if I was really affected by that as much. I think I have a sex drive of someone that is pretty normal most of the time. I don't really have sexual problems. I feel like I'm a virile young gentleman, and it's just the case where I don't think that was really something that I had thought of while I was very depressed. But I guess thinking about sex is something that's sort of put on the side burner or on the back burner anyway, because you are trying to deal with the issues of what's making you depressed and what's making you feel down and all these things. So that one. Yeah, that one I don't think really I had much of an issue with, except for the fact that it just kind of was put on the back burner because I was dealing with other issues at the time. Let's see, physical aches and pains? Not really. I don't think I was really dealing with a lot of physical aches and pains. That's not something that I can remember that really has affected me. I could think of physical aches and pains working out, but never from depression, really. It's never something that I think affected me in a very serious way. Thinking about suicide and death. Yeah, that one definitely has happened. And it happened shortly after Chester had passed, and I was just sitting in my room, and I was alone, and the rest of the housemates were on a vacation somewhere, and I was just sitting in bed, and I heard like a voice that just said like, do it or something, and I was scared. I was freaked out by it. I didn't want to kill myself. It's not something that it's not something that I really wanted to go through with. And even though the depression had kind of opened up the gates to that a bit, and it was scary. It was scary for sure. But I just was thinking to myself, like, just get through one more day. Just get through one more day. Just lay down, go to sleep, wake up the next day, and see if it'll be better. And I think that was the moment actually, or that next day I woke up and I called the suicide hotline, and I had this great conversation with this young woman that was on the phone, and she just kind of talked to me about maybe you need to go and think about getting therapy, because if you're feeling all these feelings about someone you've lost, I think it'd be very healthy for you to get therapy. And I was like, I think you're right. I think you're exactly right. It's not really something I had considered before, mostly because I didn't really need it, until everything happened with losing Chester, and just kind of have everything else just collapse around me from my childhood on. I just kind of thinking about the things that had gone wrong and trying to reconcile those things. And it was a lot of self. It was a lot of looking inside myself and just trying to figure out what I needed to improve, what I needed to realize was holding me back, and not being able to let me become the person that I wanted to become, And so, thinking about suicide and death, I mean, a lot of people that face depression in a very serious way have these suicidal thoughts. And, I've lost Chester, I've lost one of my other friends I used to work with in the haunted house industry. So, I mean, these are things that do happen. People do take their lives, and I hear about it on the news every day. That so this next person is taking their life. This person's taking their life here, there, or there, and it's it can be very troubling to hear these things. You have to recognize that it is an issue. You can't just put it aside and be like, well, whatever, it's not me, so I don't care. You have to face it head on. If you have to recognize the fact that it is happening and it is an issue in the world, and it's something we can really talk about and really address and help people. And that's really important, definitely, to have conversations and to not let it get to that point. Self-harm. That's something I have not experienced. I've never really tried to hurt myself. I was obviously in a very vulnerable state, being very depressed, but I never really thought to like slit my wrists or to perform any type of physical harm that you commonly hear about when people are feeling depressed. I never really went that far. I never taught myself how to do those things. I never really wanted to learn about that stuff because why put the idea in your head? Don't even learn how to do these things to yourself and to hurt yourself, because if you never figure it out, then you can't do it. That's what's worked for me. I don't know if that's the best solution for everyone. Some people want to have all the knowledge and be able to be strong enough mentally to just put it on the side, be like, okay, I know how to do this, but I'm not going to do it, so I'm going to put it over here. That's not really the choice I've made. I've decided to just not learn how to do any self-harm tactics. I think that has helped because it's never really become an option, because I don't know. I've consciously made an effort not to learn how to do any of these things. And so, here I am today. In a healthier state, which is awesome. Alrighty, so there we go. That's going to be the end of part 1 for the What is Depression video, and figured I'd kind of break it up a little bit. So I thought I'd just make this one around 20 or so minutes, and there you go. So hopefully you've learned something about what is depression. Hopefully we've answered this question a little bit as to what it is and what its symptoms are, and hopefully you've learned something from my experiences with it. And maybe you can share your experiences with depression in the comments if you're comfortable doing that. We can once again open up this discussion on mental health and how important it is for each and every one of us. So thanks for watching, and as always, follow your instincts and peace out.